scary moment as we went to commercial. Sophie Cunningham hit the floor hard. And
Sophie Cunningham, oh man, I got to tell you, this victory, it came with a big price.
Look at today's game where Sophie Cunningham went out in the first half. And that was such a huge blow for the Indiana Fever because Sophie Cunningham has been somebody, she has been the glue of this team since Caitlin has been out.
Sophie Cunningham was flat out targeted by a dirty player.
I'd say there's a near 0% chance that Sophie Cunningham plays again this year.
The basketball gods seem to have declared all-out war on the Indiana Fever. Today, they struck their most crushing blow yet, taking out Sophie Cunningham in the most heartbreaking fashion imaginable. What began as just another routine matchup against the basement-dwelling Connecticut Sun quickly spiraled into a nightmare when Bria Hartley, who looked more like she was playing rugby than basketball, collided directly with Sophie's knee, leaving Indiana's toughest defender writhing in agony on the court.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what it was at first when I saw her went down. So let's break down the play where Sophie got hurt. So as you can see here, Bria Hartley is going baseline. Kelsey Mitchell is guarding her. And then Sophie comes over to help. And then Bria Hartley falls on her leg. And Sophie immediately grabs like her shin area.
They went at Sophie Cunningham early. And considering this is Bria Hartley, I'm not ruling out she jumped through her knee. Considering who it is, I'm not. Like, Bria Hartley has been ejected multiple times. She's yanked Angel by the hair. This is the Connecticut Sun. This is a team that have jumped through players' knees before.
Bria Hartley has had dirty plays all season. You got to know who we're talking about. Bria Hartley is the same girl that pulled Angel Reese out of there by her ponytail just last game, I think 2 days ago. She pulls Becca Allen by her head to the floor, and Ariel Atkins goes over there to protect her teammate. Bria Hartley has been doing dirty things for all season. She's been a dirty.
The sight of Sophie clutching her right knee, tears streaming down her face, was enough to make every Fever fan wonder if this cursed season would ever escape the relentless injury plague that's haunted them all year. But here's where the story takes an absolutely unbelievable twist. What unfolded next defied every known law of physics, mathematics, and plain common sense as the Indiana Fever staged the largest comeback in franchise history. And they did it without their defensive anchor, relying instead on a roster held together by athletic tape, grit, and pure determination. So smash that like button and drop Comeback Queens in the comments, because what you're about to witness is the kind of sports magic that comes around maybe once in a lifetime.
5 minutes didn't look like we had any business beating this Connecticut Sun team. For 25 minutes, we looked like the worst team on the court. Defensive rotations, Marina hitting the three, Sanaya Rivers taking it to the rim, Tina Charles, Aaliyah Edwards, out rebounding AB, Natasha Howard, but we came alive when we needed to come alive. We forced overtime. Kelsey Mitchell, back-to-back threes in OT. Lexi Hull, dagger three, putting the nail in the coffin.
I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you too. I'm so proud of you guys. I know that sometimes it sounds like just a word when we talk about being resilient, but it's not, man. It's how we live. It's how y'all live, and it's a tribute to you. It's a tribute to your connectedness, your togetherness, your toughness, your mindset. You never give up gritty attitudes. Like, that's what it takes. That's what it takes, and we will never be counted out, because that is worth gold. That is worth.
The injury itself was absolutely sickening to watch unfold in real time. And anyone who's been following the WNBA this season knows exactly who Bria Hartley is and the reputation she's carved out for herself. This is the same player who yanked Angel Reese out of the air by her ponytail. The same reckless competitor who's been throwing elbows and making dangerous plays all year, somehow avoiding the suspensions she should have faced months ago. So when Hartley drove to the basket in the second quarter and lost control, it wasn't just an awkward fall, it was a direct collision with Sophie's planted right leg, like a wrecking ball slamming into a support beam. The impact was so violent, and so clearly avoidable, that it forces you to ask, How long will officials keep turning a blind eye to this kind of reckless behavior until someone's career is ended for good?
She was on the ground. She was crying. She was yelling. It definitely seemed like she was in a ton of pain. The training staff went over to her. They went to commercial break. Like, it was a real injury. This wasn't something, and Sophie's the type of player, a lot of times when she does get injured, she just gets right back up. She tries to walk it off. This was something that kept her down, and it was so hard to see. It is ironic because Bria Hartley has been in multiple scuffles this year with the Connecticut Sun. A lot of people would categorize her as a dirty player.
She roughs house. And Kathy Engelberg, this is why I say you wonder why there's so many goddamn injuries all over the league, because you are allowing people to play rugby and football and do UFC moves in the middle of a basketball game. In the beginning of this game, Sophie Cunningham is bringing the ball up the floor. She gets mugged, hit upside the head, knocked to the floor while dribbling the ball up the floor 75 feet away from the rim. Do you think the refs called anything?
Both Sophie's sister, I believe, and her mother both tweeted about this play. Now, Lindsay, her sister, said, WNBA, maybe you should focus less on fining players for commenting on your poor officiating and more about hiring officials that are able to call a consistent game and protect your athletes. Pathetic. Praying for you, Sophie. And then Paula, who I think is her mom, that's what the internet is saying, she said Hartley is a disgruntled player, having trouble everywhere she goes. She's plain mean and plays out of.
Sophie's reaction told you everything about the severity of the moment. This is a player who has built her entire identity on toughness, being physical, relentless, and never backing down from anyone. So when she immediately grabbed her knee, hopping desperately on one leg before collapsing in visible agony, it was the kind of sight that makes your stomach drop. You just knew something serious had happened. The fact that she needed to be helped off the floor by trainers and teammates barely able to put any weight on her leg should have been the end of the story for Indiana, especially considering the Fever are already down to a skeleton crew of healthy players. But here's what makes this situation even more infuriating from a league-wide perspective. This injury was completely preventable. If the WNBA had been enforcing its own rules instead of allowing Bria Hartley and others to play like they're in a demolition derby, Sophie's season wouldn't be in jeopardy. The referees had already let Hartley and her teammates get away with multiple cheap shots in the opening quarter, including one sequence where Sophie was knocked to the floor while dribbling 75 feet from the basket with no whistle. When you create an environment where players know they can get away with rugby tactics and UFC moves without punishment, it's only a matter of time before someone gets seriously hurt. And today, that nightmare became reality.
It's Sun, by the way, if you guys have seen, they've done a lot, they have done a lot of reckless things in this game that haven't led to fouls. I don't think this is, I hope this isn't reckless. I can't rule out it being reckless. I hope it's not reckless. But at the same time, like, the referees, there were so many situations earlier on in the game that, in fairness, that the referees were letting them away with. The referees thought, okay, yeah, let's tee up Sophie Cunningham straight away in the game. And that's going to, that's keeping the game in control. But from minute one, the Connecticut Sun, how many times have the Connecticut Sun against the Fever dove through people's knees? Multiple times this team has.
You guys brag about how physical. You guys wear it like a badge of honor. We're here to watch basketball. If we want to watch wrestling, we'll watch wrestling. If we want to watch fighting, we'll watch fighting. We're here to watch basketball. And Bria Hartley is no different than Dejanay Carrington. It's just nobody talks about it because she's on the Connecticut Sun. And
what makes this even more maddening is the fact that Sophie Cunningham has become the heart and soul of the Fever. During Caitlin Clark's extended absence, she's been the one player willing to stand up for her teammates, bringing the intensity, toughness, and defensive presence that every championship caliber team needs. Since the All-Star break, she's been Indiana's most reliable performer, averaging over 12 points per game, knocking down better than 50% of her shots from beyond the arc, and providing the kind of leadership you simply can't replace with a random body off the bench. Losing her for any significant stretch wouldn't just hurt, it would be catastrophic for a team already clinging to its playoff hopes by a thread.
Sophie Cunningham was by far, as the games went along, by a landslide, the best addition we had on this roster. From her play, her shot making, her defense, the intensity she brings, the energy, her having Caitlin Clark's back and actually being willing to fight and scrap when nobody else would hold Caitlin Clark down. Sophie Cunningham said, you know what? I got you. Now she's done. The best addition we had all season.
She is playing so incredibly well during the second half of this season. She plays hard every single night. She's super tough. She doesn't make excuses. Like, she is somebody who has really held this team.
The timing couldn't have been worse for the Fever, who entered this game having lost 4 of their last 5 and desperately needing a win against the league's worst team to keep postseason hopes alive. With Caitlin Clark missing her 13th straight game due to a groin injury, Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald already done for the season, and now Sophie potentially joining that list, Indiana was staring at the very real possibility of watching their season derailed by circumstances completely beyond their control. When Connecticut jumped out to a 19-point halftime lead, stretching it to 21 early in the third, it felt like the final nail had been hammered into the Fever's playoff coffin. But this is where heartbreak transformed into pure magic. Instead of folding under the pressure, Indiana decided to write one of the most incredible comeback stories in recent basketball history. The center of it all was Kelsey Mitchell, who simply refused to accept losing as an option. After scoring just 4 points in the first half while watching her team unravel, Mitchell erupted for 34 in the second half and overtime, tying her career high with 38. That wasn't just an elite individual performance, it was the highest scoring game by any player in the WNBA this season, and it came at the exact moment her team needed a miracle. The numbers only tell part of the story. Mitchell went 11 for 22 from the field, 5 of 8 from deep, and 11 for 12 at the line, while adding 6 assists and 4 rebounds. More importantly, she scored all 10 of Indiana's points in overtime, drilling back-to-back threes that sealed the largest comeback in franchise history. When the pressure was at its absolute peak, Mitchell responded like a superstar. The historical context makes it even more remarkable. According to the record books, Mitchell just joined Diana Taurasi as the only players in WNBA history with multiple games of 35-plus points, 6 or more assists, and 5 or more three-pointers. That's legendary company, and she did it with Indiana's season hanging by a thread. But this comeback wasn't Mitchell alone, it was a total team effort. Odyssey Sims, making her first start after signing a hardship contract, chipped in 19 points and 7 assists while studying the offense. Aliyah Boston delivered perhaps her most complete game of the year: 14 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Natasha Howard added 18 and anchored the paint, while Lexi Hull drilled a dagger 3 with 44 seconds left. In overtime, even Brianna Turner, rarely used this season, provided 10 crucial minutes off the bench to stabilize the defense. Credit also goes to coach Stephanie White, whose in-game adjustments kept Indiana alive. Starting Sims and trusting her with major minutes proved critical, while sticking with Mitchell despite her slow start showed the kind of belief that championship coaches display. Her ability to keep the team locked in after Sophie's injury and a 21-point deficit was a masterclass in leadership. From a basketball perspective, the Fever's turnaround was stunning. After shooting just 30% in the first half and missing all 10 threes, they stormed back to shoot 46% overall and 7 of 12 from deep after the break. They won the battle on the offensive glass, forced timely turnovers, and out-hustled Connecticut when it mattered most. Emotionally, this victory means even more. Here's a team battered by injuries, missing its superstar, losing its emotional leader, and forced to pull talent off the street just to fill a roster spot. Any normal group would have folded. Instead, the Fever found another gear and pulled off the impossible. That resilience says everything about the culture Indiana is building. You don't erase a 21-point deficit without belief, toughness, and collective buy-in. This win could be the spark that flips their season entirely. With the victory, Indiana moved to 19-16, sitting 2.5 games ahead of the Sparks for the final playoff spot. With 9 games left, momentum and confidence now become their greatest assets. Of course, Sophie Cunningham's injury casts a dark shadow. She'll undergo an MRI on Monday, and the fact that she was in visible pain and unable to bear weight doesn't bode well. Losing her would be devastating not just statistically, but emotionally and culturally. Sophie is more than a defender and sharpshooter. She's the enforcer, the leader, the glue. Her absence leaves a void no box score can measure. And that brings us to the bigger issue, the WNBA's ongoing failure to protect players. Indiana hasn't just been unlucky. Caitlin Clark sidelined with repeated soft tissue injuries, Colson with a torn ACL, McDonald with a broken foot, and now, Sophie with a knee injury caused by reckless play. It's a pattern, not coincidence. The league's unwillingness to punish Bria Hartley, despite a track record of dangerous plays, is a glaring example. When letting the game flow takes precedence over player safety, careers are put at risk. That makes Sophie's loss even more devastating. Beyond stats, she's been the one player consistently standing up for Clark, setting the tone with toughness, and transforming Indiana's identity from soft to scrappy. Losing that presence impacts the locker room, the culture, and even the business side of the game because fans pay to see stars compete, not sit on the sideline from preventable injuries. But in the midst of all this, what Kelsey Mitchell accomplished stands as a moment of pure sports magic. To go from 4 quiet points in the first half to carrying a broken roster on her back against impossible odds, that's the stuff legends are made of. Mitchell didn't just score. She owned the game, dictated every possession, and refused to let Indiana's season end. It was more than a comeback. It was a reminder of why we watch sports in the first place.